If it's a community project, engage people, engage them as early as can be, bring people together on a journey. And this is not just for housing, this goes on for any project, especially capital projects. People are going to be impacted in a very tangible way. So why not engage them early on and on a regular basis as often as possible to demonstrate the progress, work with them to make adjustments to the projects. So that's super important. Then thinking about long-term, sustainability of a project, you got to think for a housing project, well, is it a 100-year building? Thinking about those aspects, I think it's becoming super critical, especially in a world that we live in, the world that's impacted by climate crisis, right? So what will our life, what will this planet look like 100 years down the road? And is the building that we are developing right now, is it going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure, the pressure around wildfires, pressure around extreme heat, pressures around floods, droughts, all sorts of things that are happening that we see. We may not see it in the cities as much as we see these sorts of things in the rural context, but it impacts all of us, everyone at the same time. So why not just plan for that in our projects, sustainability, and then the cultural integration aspect too, bring that aspect into planning of a housing project, because at the end of the day, you want to create a project that makes sense to the people who are going to use it, who are going to live in it. And they might have different cultural needs that should be addressed as early as possible to make sure that when they do practice their culture in their homes, or the fire alarms aren't going off, the sensors for carbon monoxide aren't going down, and things aren't happening once people start living in those units. So bring them in, bring people in early on, talk to them, what are your needs, design the homes, design the buildings in that fashion. And yes, it adds cost to things, but there is that trade-off, having a thriving family, a thriving culture. So what's important, again, everyone's got a different way of looking at things, but you got to weigh those options. And diversifying funding sources, I think that's another to keep in mind, because you want to have partners. You want to have partners in a project, multiple partners. So always think of stacking the fundings, unless you can find that one partner who's going to look after the entire development. I think it's a smart thing to think about what that one key partner is going to be, and then leverage that, use it as an anchor to find other project partners to, at the end of the day, to reduce that burden on your own source revenues and allow for the funding that's out there through capital funders to fund housing projects is utilized more so than your own equity in a project, because that's always a bit cheaper, right? And then the last thing that comes to mind, successful housing project, is, well, having a plan, right? Having a plan for how the project is going to be managed, and then finding the right project managers to manage those plans